and welcome to yet another episode of the Conversation Capital. As always, we have the voice of reason, Bonga Bueta. Hi, Bonga.
Hey.
How you doing, girl?
Good.
That is very good. And then we've got Bongi Maphosa. Hi, Bongi.
Hi, Ursh.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so excited to have you. Just sliding into what we're chatting about today. Today, we're chatting all things to do with being a parent to a child who struggles with mental health issues. And so often, every episode you find, we're talking about, we're talking to the person who struggles with mental health. And Bongi sent me a DM on Instagram and said, Ursh, one of the things I'd like you to look into is, what does it look like to be a parent to somebody who struggles with mental health and the dynamics of that. And as soon as I took a screenshot of it, I sent it to the team and we were like, we need to do this.
Yes.
So we banked it. We get a lot of topic ideas, guys. We're banking all of them. We're trying to, slot all of them in. And this is definitely one of those that we finally gotten a chance to come around to. I don't even know. I think you sent it to me at least 2 months ago. But we finally gotten around and the chance to get around to it. And it's a discussion we've been wanting to have simply because, when you said it, it was like, what is the dynamic of, we talk about it even in friendships. I know that I've struggled to not to know, like, you don't know how to be a good friend to somebody who's struggling with mental health, and so what does it look like to be an ally, to be a friend, to be a mom, to be a parent? And that's what we're going to be delving into today. Let's start off with Bongi. Who are you?
That's a very simple one. I am a sister to two amazing siblings. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. And I'm also a mom to two amazing bundles of joy. My oldest is 17 and my youngest is 11. So that's me.
Thank you. And as I said, in the intro, then what does it look like? Often this attention is so much on the patient struggling with mental health. What does it look like for you? Being a mom. What are some of the things you
battle with?
Yeah, you battle with.
When you were looking at that episode and you wrote that comment to us, what was it that you were thinking about?
Actually, what triggered the conversation, it was a lot of suicide that was going on social media every day, having reports, hearing about somebody taking their life. And on a daily basis, people are depressed. People are posting on social media how bad it is out there. And the struggle is really, really real. So depression is something that's really close to my heart. We've dealt with depression in my family really, really closely. So when I had a look at all the stories that we hear, the headlines, there's a child who overdosed, there's a child who did this, there's a child who gave up in high school, primary, even as adults, you never really hear the side of the parents, the siblings, the other people who have to be faced with the aftermath.
Sure.
Emphasis is always on the person dealing with depression and what they might have been going through and what led to the decision to unfortunately take their life. And I always have these questions every time I read these stories. And when I saw that episode, it just triggered that, how about we have a different conversation where, in as much as we put emphasis and highlight the importance, because depression is a very serious topic. How about we also have a look at the dynamic of talking to people who have to live with somebody who suffers from depression.
Sure.
Hearing the other side, because it's tough and often you feel like there are no avenues to voice your frustration and there's no really support that is out there that's obvious. Because listen, personally I've dealt with depression and I know exactly where to go. I've always been the person who is comfortable visiting a therapist. I work for an amazing organization where we do have access to.
Okay, wait. So maybe just slowing it down. You're personally somebody who's dealt with depression
Yes.
themselves.
Yes.
And now you're parenting somebody who's also struggling with depression.
Yes.
Do you think that makes it easier for you to connect with your child and understand? And do you think it makes you better equipped to deal with it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It doesn't make me better equipped. It's even more difficult because I know exactly what she's going through. When she's in a deep, dark place, I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to feel like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I don't want to be alive anymore. I personally know what that feels like. So when I see my child verbalizing and acting out, I feel helpless. Sometimes it feels like, because I understand, I tend to be more in touch with her feelings, or more in touch with prioritizing getting her help. But to be truly honest, it's more difficult because I feel like I can't do anything. I physically feel like going in there and taking this out of her because she struggles, and it breaks my heart. And as a mom, and as a hands-on mom, I'm always feeling like I can sort things out. I can fix everything. And this is one thing that really brings me to my knees, where I feel helpless and really can't sort it out.
And I think with many issues, as what you're saying resembles so much the things my mom says sometimes when I share some of my frustrations and issues and problems with her. She says, I just want to go in and fix it for you.
Yeah.
I just want to,
I wish I could take
I'm in
I wish I could
varsity
take
and my
it
mom will want
away.
to, like, if something's happening, she's like, let me talk to that supervisor. I'm like, it's not my
Yes.
principal or my teacher in high school,
Yes.
mom.
My mother's spoken to my supervisor.
Oh, is it? Because it's so difficult
Yeah.
then to parents always just want to fix the problem for them, and this is one of those things that you get to a stage where you can't fix it. It's not like talking to a school teacher.
Yes.
It's some things are bigger than you, and it's part of their journey and their life. That being said, do you experience empathy from the community around you and your family, or do you struggle in that element? Do you think people don't empathize with you as a mom, don't empathize with you and your daughter,
So this is a very tricky question because, first of all, I'm a person who understands life in a different way. I don't really expect much from society in a way where I expect them to understand, because I'm aware that we live in a society that's really ignorant. Society we live in, it's more convenient for a person to make a reckless statement than for a person to pause and put themselves in your position.
Sure.
I'll make a very simple example. We had a situation with my child where something had happened and she was unconscious. She was non-responsive and she had to be hospitalized, rushed to hospital. And she was in a resuscitation room. And thank God the father got her there on time. The doctors managed to pump her stomach. Level of toxicity was dangerously high. And the doctors did everything they could. And she wouldn't wake up. By the time I arrived at the hospital, her almost lifeless body was lying there, still in resuscitation. So I'm rushing there as a mom, trying to figure out what's happening. I walk in and I see my child there, and I'm trying to put on this bravery, like, okay, don't cry in front of her, don't cry. You'll break down when you get into the car or when you get home. I hold her hand. I'm trying to make sense of what's happening. I'm seeing these charts and whatever. A medical professional, a sister, comes, and the first thing she's asking, are you the child's mother? And I'm like, yes. First thing she asks, like, what a reckless statement. How do you assume that my child would want to
Yo.
take your life because we have done something wrong. Why would you assume that?
Sure.
I mean, I literally just arrived. And those are some of the things that make me not really expect much from society, because people who you expect maturity or some form of responsibility, like before you say something, just consider, how is it going to land? How am I going to receive it? If something like that was said back to you, would you receive it in a kind manner? Would you appreciate it if somebody said that? So things like that really break my heart, where we're really reckless with speech, things we say, how we act around the issue of depression and mental health. And especially for a country that's dealing with it in such a severe rate.
Sure.
And
you'd assume that people are more sensitive to
And this is a space where you don't expect that, because it's a medical facility.
A private medical facility.
So you don't expect someone's going to throw that to you.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that if you're not highly qualified or if you're not educated, then you're allowed to make reckless statements.
Yes.
But
of course,
it's
the
really,
expectation is higher.
It's
in
higher.
certain contexts.
It's higher. You're a nurse, and I'm going to trust you with my child's life. So every single day when I come here to check up on my child, I need to face you. And if you're capable of saying something like that, what else are you capable of?
Just say to my daughter, you know, like, no.
What did you do to the child? You don't know us from a bar of soap. You don't know if this is your first encounter or anything like that, but you go out there and make such a statement. So
often parents, you know, put so much blame on themselves. So there's the concept of, you know, mom guilt, or I think just parent guilt. So when, you know, a child either struggling with a certain thing, or, you know, often parents look to, what did I do wrong? Do you experience anything like that?
I'm going to be really honest, Ursh. I'm really grateful that I'm a very intentional person with everything that I do. I'm not perfect, but I do strive to be really intentional and be present with everything that I do. So the type of parent that I am, I pay really close attention to how I parent. There's no right or wrong way of parenting. I'm doing best with what I have, the tools that I've got, the knowledge that I have, the best intentions that I have, right? So I've never really suffered from mom guilt, because I've always understood that whatever I do for the kids, or whatever the kids are exposed to, intentionally or not, my intention is to always shield them, protect them, and do the best for them. So, yes, we have dealt with a situation where recently she had to be admitted into a facility for a month, and during the sessions, it came up. Some of the uncomfortable things that she unfortunately was exposed to. And the immediate reaction would be, oh, I'm so sorry, you had to see that or whatever. But because I am mindful and intentional, I'll quickly snap myself out and just remind myself that I would never intentionally put my child at risk or expose them to a situation.
You allow
that
yourself
would,
to be kind to yourself and to defend yourself also.
I am very, very,
and I think
which
that's
is such
so important, because
very
it's and that's why, because you've seeked out help, you're able to have these reflections where you're able to say, this is where my role,
my responsibility,
is.
my role lies.
Yes,
beyond this.
Yes, and I think that's why it's important to empower yourself, because then you're not liable for things that you know yourself you wouldn't have ordinarily.
You have no control over. Yes.
So that's why I think it's so important that right now you're in tune with yourself and your emotions, and you're seeking out the help, so that you're able to, even because usually parents get thrown all of these things to them, like, you know, so it's good that you're able to step back and say, but no, I hear you in this context. This is what was happening. So I think it's very powerful that you're empowered to step back, and that's why things like therapy for yourself is important. Very
crucial.
Because you could have gone to a really dark place and said,
easy.
I'm to blame for all of this. And I think that's why also the education around maybe the fact that you faced it, you know that this is actually a condition and there's chemical imbalances and so forth. It has really, there are contributing factors, but there's more to it science-wise than what you can do.
Yes, beyond my control, beyond my understanding, beyond the help that we can get. So it really takes a lot of understanding that, and also asking yourself, if I'm going to beat myself up about this and take the blame, it's not going to solve the situation. It's not going to make my child better. Does she need a mom who is constantly bashing herself and feeling like, if only I changed this, if only we did this like that way? Or am I going to be the type of mother who's going to say, okay, this is where we are. What do we need to get you to a better place? And that really works for me.
Sure. So much is being said, and I think so much is being said, and I think anybody can relate to. I mean, like, especially now with everything that's happening, we're being exposed and we're learning so much about disorders around mental health and how it works, and just like you're saying, how sometimes it's that, like, instead of playing the blame game, how can I fix, but how can we
get
add
to
value?
A better place?
Yes, how can I add
can
value?
Better manage the situation?
Yes, instead of looking at how to point fingers, and it happens very often, where the outcome of any meeting or whatever is who takes the blame of this thing. But what's the outcome of that? Like, how does that help? But that's often how we're taught to deal with stuff. That somebody firstly must take blame, and then we move from there. When the truth is, sometimes things happen because this is life, and things happen, and we should rather deal with the problem. They always say, fight the problem, not each other. Something along those lines,
And I'm thinking about, in this context, I don't think it's a factor for you. However, I look at my mother, and you can see the generational gap. There's a battle, genuine battle.
Yes.
So my mother's an awesome parent, but it's like she doesn't understand, especially because parents of a particular, I'm using an umbrella term, I'm using an umbrella scenario, but they've never had to stop and go through whatever. Parents, they were on the move, like, I need to provide, I need to do this, I need to do that. So it's like my mother's like clueless when it comes to all of this. So it's like, okay, go see a psychiatrist, go see a psychologist. Like, that's how far I can help you. However, everyday interventions. So I'm thinking about that generational gap that most parents face. Like, I genuinely don't know what to do with all of that you're facing. However, some parents are willing, some are not. And I'm happy to hear from how you're speaking that it seems there's no generational gap for you. You understand, or am I assuming? Is it there?
Well, the generational gap is there in a sense that I'm a very strict parent. A lot of how I parent comes from how I was parented. So I try to merge that strictness with the modern type of parenting where I'm allowing my kids to be seen and heard. I'm allowing my kids to voice out how they feel. I'm considerate and really intentional about, are you okay? What are you feeling? How are you feeling? Use your words. Verbalize. Let me know. And bridging that gap of trust. Making sure that whatever you're going through, please know that mom is the first person you're going to tell, no matter what's happening. I'm going to scream and shout, but please let me know.
After that, we move.
Make sure that you let me know, because after the scream and shout, I will always be there. I will always have your back.
Sure.
That's the type of parenting that I have, because sadly, when we have these bundles of joy, they don't come with a manual. I wish they could. Sometimes when it really gets tough, because as much as I come across as a very positive person, I've got a way that I'm managing my situation, it really gets tough. Where I sit down and I speak to my God and I'm like, Maramudimo, this was not necessary. Even if I had to learn a lesson, this was not necessary. And it hurts. And why did it have to go there? But because I understand that we don't get manuals when we leave the hospital with them, I needed to empower myself with literature, exposing myself to, as soon as I picked up that there's something about Mary, I would go seek help, read, consult with play therapists, various specialists to understand, because honestly speaking, when you have a baby, you're not going to be prioritizing reading up on challenges that children have. Reading
Nobody does
impairments
that.
and
Nobody does
your
that,
ADDs, your having speech therapy, or you don't focus on that. You focus on, I want a healthy child with 10 toes, 10 fingers. You don't think about children battling with learning disabilities and things like that.
It's so true.
But what I think we're responsible for is making sure that as soon as you pick up, whether your mom or dad, whoever's closest to the child, as soon as you pick up that invest in finding out what could be behind this. Because often because we come from a society that we socialized to think that children are naughty. Especially my little one. My little one, he will make you understand that you have a boy child. Yeah, he will make you understand that.
I've got a friend who always says, "Yo, my last born a boy as well."
Mamela, girl, he will make you feel but there's a clear distinction between Busto Tubangwana and I think there's an underlying
something going
here.
On here.
And it's very important to seek help, professional help, because often you will misdiagnose your child when you see Wanako next door, or you hear on a podcast saying my child has ADD,
and
then
you run with it.
So it's really important to invest in consulting with the professional who's going to evaluate your child, who's going to give you a professional opinion and make you understand that yes, there is a definite issue, and going forward, here are the tools to help you manage the situation at home or to help your child, because it's not easy.
Okay. And also, sorry, Bonga, if I'm interjecting, but you speak of, these different, like you spoke of prayer, you're speaking of counseling, coping mechanisms for you now, outside of dealing with the issue. When you're reaching like, yo, God, this is a lot, what do you do? What are your coping mechanisms?
Honestly speaking, I would not have had the strength to walk this journey without my faith. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people rely on speaking to a friend. Some people, it's a close family member. Some people, it's therapy only. So I have a holistic approach when it comes to dealing with it and getting through it. But top of the list is my faith. I consult with him in a way that the relationship can only be understood by somebody who's really in pain. I literally cried to God and I just let him know. I let him know. Like, Lord, but you can't give me precious children that I've prayed for. I've prayed for. And you let my children suffer like this.
Sure.
Please give me an answer. Please show me how to deal with this, how to handle this, how to be the best mother for them, because it's heavy, and I need to be strong for these little ones. But right now my strength is running low. I need you to be my rock.
Sure.
I've trusted God with everything. So when it comes to the battles, the challenges, I lean to my faith. I'm very quick to pray as soon as I sense
something.
As soon as I sense that something is happening, or I can't do this anymore, I pray first before I reach out to my therapist, before I reach out to my sister, because that's the biggest support structure. I make sure that I pray first. I consult with God. I let him know all of my problems, because that's what he's there for. Yeah.
And as you go through this journey with your children, are there any demons you've had to face of yourself?
I don't want to say this question is a trigger for me, because triggers can break us down sometimes, and they can make us act out of place or not really find our strength. So it's a bit of a sore point, because the type of challenges that I'm facing are repeating themselves. So here's a brief story. My mom was late. I had an older brother. My brother unfortunately passed away, committed suicide. So growing up, I lived with a brother who battles challenges, clinical depression. And the situation got worse every year. There's stories, hectic stories that I can write books about, especially when we were in high school, and events that led up to him finally giving up. Sad. And to see my mother parenting a child struggling with depression, it was heartbreaking. So when I got a turn to be a parent, and when I started seeing similar patterns, first of all, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. History repeating itself.
Sure.
And as soon as I was confronted with that reality, I geared up and I was like, okay, my strength has to be elevated. It needs to be on another level, because I know how it ended for my mom. We buried mom 18 months after we buried my brother. A piece of her died when she buried her child. She's the one that found him. So I saw my mother deteriorating in front of my eyes daily, and there was nothing we could do. We took her to therapy, we tried church, we tried taking her out, we tried various things, but we couldn't take her out, because the type of pain that she was feeling could only be understood by a parent who had gone through a similar situation.
Sure, and what you're saying is not, because now you're saying, it's this trauma. You watched your mom go through this,
Resurface.
and then it's resurfacing, and you're just like, how is this happening? For a second time in a single lifetime? Because at first as an observer, and now somebody firsthand, and not necessarily even as an observer. The truth is, you were a sister, you were a daughter, So observer, you were deeply affected then, and you're still being affected now by the memory of it, the memory alone, So, oh my gosh, and just if we're going to try to, I don't know if it's possible, we're going to try to end on, a bit of a note that, of encouragement to the next person, somebody who's watching this at home. And like I said, I don't think you can't say, oh no, this is the solution. Obviously, we're not expecting that from you. But if you are to give advice to somebody who's just realized, okay, I might be working with a child who struggles with some kind of mental health, any form of mental health, like you've already mentioned, your ADHDs, whatever have you. And ADHD is mental health disorder.
Yes.
Yeah. And things like that. If, for somebody who's watching, what's your advice?
First advice, I would take it back to conception. When we pray for a child, because remember, children come in various ways. Sometimes you pray and you plan a pregnancy. Sometimes you wake up, you're not feeling well, you take a test and it's positive. Whichever comes first, as soon as you realize that there's a life that is going to be entrusted in your hands, at that point, take time to thank God for that opportunity. But in addition to that, let's also be realistic in our prayer and also include the prayer of serenity. Because we don't know this gift that is coming, besides the 10 toes and the 10 fingers, there might be challenges. So here's what I shared with a friend who's going to have a baby very soon. I'm so excited. Let them know that ask God to give you strength to handle any adversity. Any adversity that will come, any challenge that will come with bringing this life into existence. Because that will remove the element of expectation, expecting the child to be perfect. That way, if God gives you a child with albinism, a child with one limb, a child with whatever, you've already created room in your heart, in your mind, to prep yourself that should that be my reality, I'm willing to walk the journey. So once we prep ourselves from that level, then we can empower ourselves once we pick up the signs. Because with my son, I started noticing the differences, the attention and everything when he was about 3, when he was verbal now. He could make up sentences. I could pick up that, okay, there's something there. With my daughter, I started picking up around about the same time, but towards 5 and 6. That's when I started noticing that, okay, there are things that are presenting themselves. So it was a shock when I saw it, especially with my daughter, because I had never read a book about struggles and learning disabilities and things like that. And I had no idea that they can manifest and turn into something bigger. You know, something as simple as my child is not concentrating in class. And you take it as light as that, and you think, okay, it's going to end there. As the child grows, it manifests and develops into something a bad monster. So I would really encourage parents to first prep ourselves, if possible. And then another thing, unconditional love.
Sure.
Unconditional love, because these children are my world. I can't imagine my life without either one of them. I love them daily, even on the days where I feel like banaba baseleka man. These kids. At the end of the day, I could never picture my life without them. So unconditional love is really important, especially with a child who's clinically depressed. The constant reassurance that you are loved, you're important, you matter, and you are fine just as you are. You might be a little different, but you are enough. They need that. So parents need to prioritize reminding themselves and the children, you know, that as you are, you're perfect, and don't ever feel like you're less than, or if only God made you different. So those are the main 2 things that if you have those 2 tools, then you can take it from there and run.
And for the parents, how do they what tools? I the word that came is empower themselves for this journey, for themselves.
Yes.
Like, because we said earlier, it is as difficult for them as it is for the patient or their child, right? So what do you say to that parent? How do they make the journey better for themselves? Because they matter too.
Yes, that's a very important question, and it touches on, I think it was the first or second question we dealt with. Because we live in a society where it's not a comfortable conversation to have, that, oh, guess what, I have a child with special needs or child who's depressed. It's not easy to go to a sibling or a friend and have these. Quite frankly, most of my friends and family, it's the first time they're going to hear about our struggles, because I'm very protective.
Sure.
This is our journey.
Sure.
And I'm very protective of my children. I don't want anyone around them who's going to make a reckless statement or anything like that. So it's important for the parent to open up to somebody who you trust. Don't sit with it. Don't sit with it, because it's going to create a sense of, I'm alone. There's no help. I can't help this child. I can't help myself.
With
So
many issues.
With many
Many
issues.
The moment you talk, somebody says, "Oh, me too."
Yeah.
And you don't feel so lonely anymore.
So it's really important that when you get help for your little one, also get help for yourself.
Yes.
And don't focus on the judgment that's going to come, because I'm prepared for the phone calls. Wow, Sarabocha. Why mitina ungasitshelanga? Hey, why uhamba ya ku social media and telling Charles? But they need to respect that this is our journey and this is my story. And for a parent who's dealing with this, it's their choice to open up to whoever they're comfortable with. And if somebody's going to trust you and be vulnerable that level, they must really, really believe that you will be some form of support. Because we were talking about it with my daughter, that do you know how easy it is for somebody to say, oh, but why did I see this on camera? Why did I see this on TV? Why did I see this on social media? You could have said something. It's easy for somebody to act like they would have helped or done something if you reached out because it's words. But in actual fact, if I call you right now and I tell you that I just received a call from my child's school and they're telling me that my child is non-responsive, what exactly are you going to do? Are you going to drop everything you're doing, come to my rescue and say, listen, you're frantic, I'm going to drive you to the hospital, or I will meet you there, or I will start a chain of prayer? More often than not, people will only say, oh, shame, askis, what's alarm? What's a thing? What led to that? So people need to understand that a parent dealing with this is allowed to share this journey with whomever they choose.
Yes.
It's so
And
easy
let's
to say, why
respect
didn't you tell me?
that.
Did you create a space for me to tell you and to feel safe to tell you?
Let's
Before
respect
you say,
that.
why didn't I tell you? What do I owe you? Sure, these are questions.
So no calls after watching this.
They will come. They will come. I promise you, they will come. But I'm ready for them, because at the end of the journey, at the end of the day, the person I needed to consult gave me a green light. And the one powerful thing she said last night, Mom, if our story can change one person's life, whether a child in high school, an adult going through the most and feeling like it's the end and they just don't want to do this life thing anymore. If our story can reach somebody and encourage them to be grateful for yet another day, and find hope, and feel like we're not alone, and if she can go through this journey with her mom and they figure it out day by day, and it's not perfect, it's not rosy, surely
We can.
surely I can put one foot in front of another and find some form of strength. Surely, as a parent dealing with this child, I can't give up on my child, I can't give up on myself. I can reach out and there is help. If we can just touch one person's life. And those are the words from the person going through it herself. That for me, it literally felt like God was sitting there saying, yes, my child,
it's okay.
Go ahead. With the backlash that you will get, with the comments, with everything, go ahead and it will get better. It definitely will get better.
There's so much to say about that, but I think let us not ruin that. Let's end on that, and let's end on saying, I hope that somebody's encouraged. And it's so difficult to understand. Everybody's still learning the different layers of depression. Everybody's still learning the different layers of ADHD. Everybody's still learning, I can easily say when I was in high school, it wasn't a thing. You loosely use the word, okay, depressed is wrong in high school. Now we know you don't just throw around terms like that. It's deeper than you think, and so we're all learning, and I trust the people around you. You won't get backlash. I hope that you get a lot of love, even from people who don't understand why you didn't tell them, that they understand it's not about that. Right now it's about supporting and loving you and your family. And I hope that there's somebody out there who's going through similar struggles who's also encouraged, that, hey, I'm not alone, That's my hope and prayer.
And thank you to your family for sharing this with us.
Yeah, because I do realize, like, because we spoke and I said, are you comfortable? Is everything, we had to walk through, are you comfortable being the one to share the story, even though it was your topic idea? And I know that you needed to consult first with your daughter and see that everybody was on board, and so we really we appreciate and respect so much that you've been so brave to share that.
I'm so grateful, and I'm so thankful to all the family members and the friends that are privileged enough to know, and the children's father. He's amazing and doing the best with the situation, because it's really foreign to us. So I'm so grateful and honored that God trusted me with this journey. And the more we walk this journey, the more I understand why he chose me.
Sure. Hey, if only we can all feel like that about our struggles one day. Hey, anyway, guys, that has been the episode of The Conversation Capital today. Continue to like, share, subscribe, and please show Sis Bongi all the love in the comments. Her family, her daughter, her son, everybody that needs to just hear some love, and share your story with us as well in the comment box, and let people know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, and God bless.